Before we begin the services for Mrs. Rhona Harris, the interment will take place at Shalom Memorial Park in Arlington Heights. For those of you joining our procession, we will provide those vehicles with an orange funeral sticker as well as a magnetic flag for the top of your vehicle. And please keep your emergency flashers on while in procession. The Shiva will be observed back here, Congregation BJBE, today from 3 to 8 p.m. You may notice in your handouts that you received that it says that masks are optional. They are not optional for the Shiva. They are required for an added caution. Okay, and the pallbearers will be serving, all the loving grandchildren will be pallbearers this morning. The services will be conducted by Rabbi Jason Fenster and Cantor Jennifer Frost. I'll ask everyone to please rise as the family enters the sanctuary.
You can all be seated.
Shiviti Adonai lenegdi tamid ki mimini balemot lachen samach libi me'agel kevodi afsari ishkon lavetach כי לא תעזוב נפשי לשאול, לא תיתן חסידך לראות שחת, תודיעני אורח חיים, אורח חיים. סוב השמחות את פניך, נימות בימינך נצח. שיביתי אדוני לנגדי תמיד, כי מימיני בא אמות.
I have set the eternal before me always. God is at my side, and I shall not stumble. My heart, even in the midst of loss, finds reason to rejoice and exult. I find that I am safe. I know that I will not be abandoned, and my faith will not be destroyed. There is a path of life, a presence of fullness, joy, enduring happiness in the gift of life. We're here to do something that is sacred, and it is hard. That to be present, to bear witness to memory and legacy, it is a holy responsibility. Those of you in the sanctuary, those of us joining on Zoom, know what an incredible gift Rhona was to her family, her friends, to this congregation. And though our hearts are heavy and our hearts are broken, we know that this moment, our presence, our witness to who she was, her life and her legacy is sacred. And so our job today, and this week, and this month, and this year, and all the days of our lives is to remember, to share her stories, her lessons, to find comfort and strength in each other, because that's what she taught you to do, to build true relationships based on love and trust. And we will remember and find comfort in each other's presence. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, but life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion, and then perhaps to wisdom, from weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again, from health to sickness and back we pray to health again, from offense to forgiveness, from loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion and grief to understanding, from fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat, until looking backward or ahead, we see that victory lies not at some high place along the way, but in having made the journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning, and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage from birth to death, to life everlasting. In moments of deep human emotion in Jewish tradition, we often turn to psalms, to biblical poetry that speaks to the depth of the human experience. Not to say that anyone has ever felt the way that you feel right now, but that the poetry might give language, might help us find words when there are no words. And often we turn to the 23rd Psalm. We know its language. It speaks about a valley of darkness, a valley of shadows. Maybe that's where we sit today, a valley that feels dark. That's okay. It's okay. We can sit there for some time. And the psalm with love and grace continues. At the end, it reminds us that goodness and mercy are following us all the days of our lives. And the Hebrew literally doesn't say follow, it means chase. That while we sit in a valley that's dark, we are literally chased by goodness and mercy, by life and legacy and memory and blessing. For now, we'll sit. It's okay to sit. And soon, we'll look over our shoulder and see the goodness and the sweetness that is beckoning us, urging us forward towards light and life, memory and blessing.
Adonai roi lo exar bino tdashayar bitseni alamei menuchot yanaleini Nafshi yashovev yashovev Yancheini b'magelei tzadak Yanecheini b'magelei tzadak Leman neshamo Gam ki yelech Megates al-mavet lo irara ki ata imadi shivadecha umishanedecha hema yanachamuni Ta'aroch lefanai Shulchan neged zorai Dishanta v'Hashem en roshi Kosi revaya Ach tov v'chesed yirdafuni Kol yemei chayai Kol yemei chayai V'shaveti beveit Adonai Leorech Yamim Adonai roi lo aksar Adonai roi lo aksar
The 23rd Psalm, we'll read together. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember her. In the blowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember her. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember her. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of the sun, we remember her. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember her. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, you will remember her. When you are weary or in need of strength, you will remember her. When you're lost or sick at heart, you will remember her. When you have joys you yearn to share, you will remember her. So long as we live, she too shall live, for she is now a part of us, and as we remember her. In his sorrow, Job cried out, Adonai Natan, v'Adonai lakach, Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. God has given, and God has taken away. Blessed be God's name. Adonai Natan, God gave an incredible gift in Rhona. A gift to family, to friends, to community. A gift of work ethic and compassion, of building and sustaining with every fiber of her being a family. But Adonai lakach, God has taken. And there aren't words to describe what that is like and the loss that that leaves. And Yehi Shem Adonai mevarach. And even in the midst of loss, there is something, many abundant things worthy of blessing, worthy of gratitude and praise. And so today we begin, we'll share those stories, those memories, the little ones we've told 1,000 times, and the big ones, the ones that changed and set the course of your life. We tell the stories again and again and again. V'zecher tzadik livracha, and the memory of the righteous through our stories, through their memory, becomes a blessing. We'll begin inviting Steve to come share some words of reflection.
All right. I was originally going to open with an anecdote about this cold that I had the past few weeks ago. And my wife, the microbiologist who had been on the front lines of the pandemic for the past 2 years, she said, no, you're not. Because she is a much wiser person than I, and it's something that she shared with my mother. Because Rhona was the epitome of wisdom. And while I may never rise up to her prodigious levels of awareness, I'd like to think that some of it has rubbed off. In the past week or so, I used some of that insight to poke at some of life's bigger questions. As I watched my mom at the end of her story, I couldn't help but parse out, what is this all for? All the struggles, all the happiness, all the victories, and all the defeats, all this life. And while I won't profess to be evolved enough to figure it all out, I did manage to come up with at least a few answers. Answers, of course, that were stitched inside all the things my mom tried to teach me and my brothers and sisters over the years. Because, of course, they were. Rhona. Everything's a lesson. You see, in a world that's not always kind and seems to be getting harder to navigate with every passing year, overpopulated with, let's just say, not great people, because I promised my wife I wouldn't swear in temple, it's more essential than ever to be good, to be caring, be compassionate, and be kind. And I know this isn't a huge discovery. B.F. Skinner is not exactly green with envy over my insights to human nature. But it's so basic you'd think more people would get it, but sadly, more people don't. Which leads me to this whole big revelation about why we are here. In my opinion, I think we're here to keep putting good people on this planet. My grandparents, Albert and Ann, they were wonderful people, and they taught my mom to be amazing. My mom taught me and my brother and my sisters to put that forward into the world. And I know that we also have to make our children, and now I know great-grandchildren are out there now, then we are out there to make them a force of good as they will, as they need to keep that cycle of goodness moving forward to make sure that that light never dims. When it all comes down to it, and what my mom was really all about was just teaching us to do right. She was always making sure that there was a lesson to be learned. And while it wasn't always overt or hammered over our head, she understood that the way to make us into the best that we could be was making sure that we understood everything. There were times, however, when she was adamant about her lessons. Like whenever I did use profanity in front of my mom, she'd always say, "Stephen, I didn't teach you to talk that way." And it's true, she didn't. My use of swear words, that's all on me and probably on my brother a little bit. Maybe the occasional R-rated movie. But there were so many other things that she did teach me and my siblings. Some were monumental and shaped who we were. Some were essential to our survival. Some were questionable. There are a few of the things that Rhona taught me, that often her judgments didn't need a reason. Because I said so was reasoning enough. She taught us that one should not jump off the Sears Tower, regardless of all your friends' intentions to jump off the Sears Tower. She taught me that denim overalls are cool, and if the kids at school laughed, it was because they were just jealous that they were not wearing denim overalls. She taught me that it's never okay to spray a foam fire extinguisher in an enclosed space, such as a garage, just because you're curious to see everything covered in foam. She also taught me that listening to rock music turned up to 11 will in fact make you deaf, and she was right. She did teach us some more applicable and incredibly valuable life skills as well. She taught us that anything worth having only held its worth if you worked hard enough to achieve it. She taught us that if you did something, you didn't do it for reward or applause, you did it because it was the right thing to do. And that the right thing to do was seldom the easy thing to do. She taught us to think carefully before we spoke. She taught us that it wasn't about what you didn't have, it was about what you did with what you did have. She taught us tolerance and acceptance and how vital it was to help those who needed it most. She taught us the importance of friends, of laughing, of education, of reading. Most importantly, she taught us that family, overall, those were the people that you were there for. Those were the people that you didn't fail. Those were the people you protected. And that's what she was all about. She was always there for us. Yeah, she could be stern, she could be stubborn, but she was always protective. She was always supportive, and she was always sure that we knew that we were loved. Life for my mom wasn't always easy. Before she got remarried to Marshall, she was left to raise 3 kids by herself, working full-time, making sure we had food, clothes, a home. She busted her butt to make sure that we stayed on the right path. Kind of a newsflash, out of all her kids, there was a fairly good chance that I was not the easiest kid to raise. But she never quit. Not on me, not on my brother, my sisters, not on herself. A lesser person might have given into self-pity and despair. A lesser person might have whined, "Why me?" But not Rhona, never Rhona. When life went off the rails, she, by sheer force of will, held it together, held us together, and refused to be defeated. It was a mindset most evident and probably the most important lesson my mom taught me. It is something I impart to my own kids, to my students. To this day, life isn't fair. Sometimes bad things happen, and what do? You take 5 minutes to feel sorry for yourself, then you pick yourself up and move on. Take 5 minutes, feel sorry for yourself, and move on. I can't think of anything more Rhona than that. So I'd like to, this is the part I might lose it. I'd like to close with something from songwriter Allison Russell. Stronger for my pain and suffering, my body was broken, but my heart's reborn. So close, so close. I'm freer than the sky. Thank you, Mom. Thank you for everything. Your presence in this world will be forever missed. Your impact upon it, though, will be forever felt.
Beautiful. Thank you, Steve. Next, we'll invite Abby. Yeah, all right.
I'm not going to speak. I'm going to sing because that's what I do. And Grandma always loved to hear me sing, and she supported me in everything I did. So this is a song. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. You used to rock me in the cradle of your arm. You said you'd hold me till the pains of life were gone. You said you'd comfort me in times like these, and now I need you, now I need you, and you are gone. So I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Since you've gone and left me, there's been so little beauty, but I know I saw it clearly through your eyes. Now the world outside is such a cold and bitter place. Inside I have few things that will console. And when I try to hear your voice above the strains of life, then I remember what I was told. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Yes, I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I think on the things that made me feel so wonderful when I was young. I think on the things that made me laugh, made me dance, made me sing. I think on the things that made me grow into a being full of light. Think on these things, for they are true. So I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I thought that you were gone, but now I know you're with me. You are the voice that whispers all I need to hear. I know a please, a thank you, and a smile will take me far. I know that I am you and you are me and we are one. I know that who I am is numbered in each grain of sand. I know that I've been blessed again and over again. So I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. I am sitting here wanting memories to teach me to see the beauty in the world through my own eyes. Thank you.
Next, we'll invite Jordan, Jessica, and Rachel, Rhona's grandchildren. More of Rhona's grandchildren. Or, yeah, you can all come up together.
Or just me? Yeah. All right. Well, I'm not going to sing because nobody wants that. But I struggled writing this as how do you eulogize someone who has just been a constant comforting presence in your entire life. It's an incredibly difficult thing to put all those words and emotions on paper that describe a person that's meant so much to you and your family. Yesterday, looking over at Lauren and Daisy, my own little family, reading a Curious George book together, I couldn't help but to think that the best way to memorialize Grandma would be to share some of the life lessons that my grandma had imparted on me over the years and that I plan to carry on to my own family. First and foremost was the importance of family. We were a blended family that never once felt like a blended family, as Grandma always emphasized togetherness. I loved our monthly birthday and anniversary dinners, and though I'm glad somebody finally convinced Grandma not to order the birthday cake with fruit on the inside, while those dinners happened less frequently over the years, as her grandchildren grew up, we went off to college, we moved on to new cities, I'm grateful for all the times that we were able to gather and celebrate at Grandma and Grandpa's. Grandma was warm, kind, and inviting. You always felt comforted in her presence. Grandma was also a constant presence at every important event. For each graduation, baseball or basketball game, every school play, Grandma was there. I know that my brothers and my cousins can pinpoint a nervous moment before we stepped up to the plate or went on stage, but we looked out to the stands or crowd and saw our grandparents there, and it instantly comforted us. The time we were able to spend with Grandma and Grandpa together was what meant the most. As a kid, I'm sure I took this support for granted, but we were so lucky to have their support every step of the way. Sharing these experiences and achievements with Grandma is something that I'll carry with me forever. I don't profess to be a very religious person, but the concept of tikkun olam has always resonated with me. The literal translation from Hebrew means to repair the world, and I've always understood that to mean we should be leaving this place better than we found it. Whether it was through volunteering in the community, as Grandma did for many years at BJBE, including serving on the executive board, or exemplifying the positive character traits that she molded into her children and her grandchildren, my grandma left a legacy of service and selflessness that I hope to foster in my own family. While COVID has certainly robbed many of us of much of the past 2 years, I'm incredibly grateful for the time Daisy and Grandma got to spend together. These wonderful memories that I have of Grandma and the values that she's instilled in me are something that I'll forever share with Daisy, and I hope that she'll pass them down to her children and her children's children. From generation to generation, Lador Vador. I'm lucky to have had my grandma in my life for so long, and I'll miss her terribly. Grandma, I love you.
Jessica and Rachel, are you? Yeah. Okay. All right. Dave, why don't you come up and share?
First, I want to thank everyone for coming today, whether you're here in Temple with us or watching on Zoom. I want to thank my brother for his beautiful eulogy. As you'll see here shortly, I'm going to keep my remarks short. He is the author in the family, not me. Jordan, thank you as well, and Abby. That's a tough act to follow. That was beautiful. To those, my siblings and my nieces and nephews and my kids that didn't speak today, I know you keep these memories and feelings in your heart, and sometimes it's easier just to say them privately than publicly, but we know you all feel the same. Excuse me. I have my support up here. Also want to thank all the caregivers that have assisted Mom over the past couple years. It was a very difficult task getting this army of caregivers together, and I want to thank Beth for doing that. It was a thankless chore. I also want to thank my siblings for really pulling together these past couple years when Mom was not doing her best, and especially this past week. As many of you know, the last couple years have been very hard for her with health issues and further complicated by the isolation brought on by COVID. You know, it's a blessing that she's no longer in pain or suffering. And I don't pretend to know what comes next, but I kind of like to think that she's hanging out with Marshall right now, and there's a big buffet full of all of her favorite shrimp dishes. That was her favorite, and if she could do something about the weather, that'd be nice too. Two things I want to share in closing. This could be the hard part. Last week, earlier in the week, she'd wake up a little bit and talk to us, and she told us she lived Karen and I were there, and she told us she lived a good life. Then she said family and love each other. I think she would be happy that I shared this with all of you, and she'd be honored if you took that home to your families and your friends and followed those words. And now for something just a little bit lighter. Mom had her garden of great-grandchildren, Lily and Daisy. And a week ago Sunday, we were over with Daisy, and as we were leaving, she gave Mom a great big hug. Then Lisa told me they were over the very next day. And while I understand Lily might not be the biggest hugger, she gave great-grandma, 2 big hugs. You can interpret it how you wish, but my thoughts on that is they were telling Gigi, you did a great job raising the family, and we'll take it from here. So, in closing, Mom, we love you. You're not here physically, but you'll always be with us in spirit and in heart. Thank you.
No matter what we say today, it's insufficient to describe the 88 years of life on this planet and the work she did with family and community. We just begin to scratch the surface of who she was and how much love she had to share. Rhona was born on February 21st, 1933, and grew up in Hyde Park. Even from that time, always had family around, living in a 3-flat with cousins, aunts, and uncles everywhere. She cherished the time her family would take to travel to the Indiana Dunes and had a picture that remained in her kitchen for years. After high school, she spent 2 years at the Art Institute, focusing and studying drawing and calligraphy because she loved art. She loved art and theater and music and passed that on to the generations that came after her. After her time at the Art Institute, she worked at Carson Scott Perry and was responsible for beautiful, stunning window displays. And of course, life threw her hard moments as well. When it was time for her to serve as a single mother, she doubled down on her commitment to family and to her children. She worked and she worked to sustain, provide, and care for her children, and found a job that she kept until she was 80 years old. A true commitment to sustaining and caring for you. Steve, I think you said this yesterday. We didn't have a lot, but we had a lot. At a moment in an era where there were not many single mothers and where divorce was uncommon, she worked to make sure you always had a home-cooked meal on the table and that you got home for a home-cooked meal on the table, except unless you had biked off to God knows where. Still came back, found your way back together. She worked to make sure that she could pay for you to go through college on her own. As a mom, she taught you those most important lessons, how to be good people, how to be kind and accepting. And as we spoke yesterday, it felt appropriate that this week we read from the right smack in the middle of the Torah. We read from Parshat Kedoshim, which is the holiness code. It's a reminder of who we're supposed to be and our responsibility to care for the people around us. And that central line, Ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your neighbor as yourself. And all of these guidelines and rules for how we build and sustain community. Your mom lived Kedoshim. She lived a holiness code. Taught you not to judge someone until you met them. She found a way to grow and evolve. You even described her as, not a word often used to describe someone in her 80s, but as woke. That she worked, did that, as Jordan said, that tikkun olam work. To bring something holy into the world, to leave it better than she found it. But the word kadosh, the word for holy, also means a thing that is distinct and separate, which I believe was her living room, which you were not allowed in, especially if it was company clean. That extra measure that you had to do if anyone came over, and God forbid if you touched the couch or messed up the vacuum lines on the carpet. She was meticulous about her home, about her appearance, always having a scarf and a brooch, a necklace, and everything would match. And she built sacred community. One of the early members of this congregation always had her spot in the sanctuary. Built and sustained the sisterhood, the gift shop, doing the luncheons, and number 137 at the rummage sale, her pride and joy. She was close with our beloved Rabbi Shapiro, alav shalom. And she found the synagogue as a place for purpose and for community, building and sustaining friendships over decades. One of those closest friendships was with Dolores. May her memory be for blessing. Her best friend for many years. And Dolores' last wish was that her husband, Marshall, and Rhona would care for each other the rest of their lives and insisted that they get married, and they did. And they built a loving, exemplary relationship. Something she deserved. She took time focusing on her children, and then when it was time for her, she found Marshall. And they traveled with friends, built friendships. They loved taking their grandchildren to the theater, finding the right show, the right moment. And that directed and set the course of your lives as well. And the friendship she built, whether it was her come rain or snow, her Wednesday mahjong group. I think I saw Bobby Peel on the Zoom, part of that core group of mahjong players. Or finding community in her condo, serving on the board and the president, always finding her way into leadership, finding her way to support and sustain the people around her. And those friendships she built, those ones that lasted decade after decade. After Marshall passed 5 years ago, after that loss, they checked in on her and checked in on you to see how she was doing, because to know Rhona was to love her. And most important of all, as all of you shared, was family. It was family. And any family who came through the door was loved. Whether it was the special relationship she forged with Karen, how she saw the good in Joe and how he loved Lisa, how Kathy found her way into Rhona's heart, that love, the way that that you loved her children, meant that she could love you. It would find you and talk on the phone daily, and that you cared for her. Cared for her is when she needed it most. And her grandchildren, her great-grandchildren, were the light of her life. As you said, she showed up to everything, and it bears repeating because it's just so beautiful. Her great-grandma's garden of Daisy and Lily that lit her up with joy and with light. You loved her monthly birthday dinners with I believe it was the chocolate squares that won the day. Or grandma's chicken, also an important part of your family meals together. What I found so compelling is that a woman who loved art, who did beautiful calligraphy, Her bedroom had no art in it. It was pictures of family, of all of you, of the generations that came before, because that's what she wanted to be surrounded by, was all of you. And she could look at you from across the room and hug you with her eyes or with a little movement of her hands. She could also redirect you with a look across the room as well. I believe it's called the R face, yeah, the Rhona face. Get you back in line if need be. And her garden that she tended and cared for, and that you will tend and care for. The garden of the flowers and the garden of your family. You will tend and care for each other just as she tended and cared for you. Because that was the holy lesson that she taught you. Of family, and not just family for family's sake, but family because she wanted you to be close and connected to one another. She taught you how important it was to have good friends and that to have a good friend, you needed to be a good friend. She taught you the holy work of doing the right thing and working hard and leading by example. She was a beloved member of this congregation and this community. And her memory will surely, surely be an everlasting blessing. I invite you to rise for the memorial prayer.
El male rachamim shoken b'maromim hamsei menucha nechona tachat kanvei hashchina im kedoshim utehorim kizohar harakim azirim et nishmat Rhona bat Albert Van shalacha leolama Balarachamim yasirei habeseter knafav leolamim bitzror hachayim et nishmata Adonai hu nachalata v'tenuach b'shalom al mishkava v'nomar Amen.
God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Rhona Harris, who is gone unto eternity. God of mercy, bring her under the cover of thy wings and let her soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may her repose be peace, to which we say, Amen. Please be seated. Oh, excuse me, I'm so sorry. As we escort the casket out and the family out of the sanctuary, I'll ask you, please do rise again. Thank you.